An integral part of the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles is a diverse community of micro-entrepreneurs who have made a lasting impact on the city they call home. These hardworking people are the street vendors of LA. Each day, tens of thousands of vendors set up on the busy streets of LA and ready themselves to receive customers. There are currently 50,000 vendors operating in Los Angeles, and they distribute a wide array of items. 1/5 of vendors sell food. They offer up a number of cultural specialties, among them tasty bacon-wrapped hot dogs, roasted corn, tamales, pupusas, and tacos. Others sell jewelry, house supplies, hygiene products, and affordable shoes or clothing items. Each day, Angelenos and tourists buy food or supplies from their local vendors and rely on them for a breakfast, a snack, lunch, or dinner. Their lower-cost wares provide options to low-income families or people who may not have the money to shop at large supermarkets. Street vending also contributes $500 million to the local economy each year and creates over 5,000 additional jobs per year.
Yeah, well, street vending in LA dates back over a century. I mean, really from sort of the modern origins of the city. Mostly it was clustered in the downtown area. There were produce vendors, tamale vendors, lots of people selling things on the streets.
After the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed way back in 1848, ending the Mexican-American War, a massive chunk of land was sold to the American government, and in the following years, Los Angeles became a hub for agriculture and farming. Due to the gold rush and transcontinental railroad, however, Los Angeles grew from an agriculture hub into a shell of the city we know today. The Mexican folks that were in Los Angeles at the time started selling their authentic foods from carts and became Los Angeles' first street vendors. Due to a spike in popularity of street food, the economy started doing well. But in the late 1800s, the city's government started cracking down. And as early as the 1890s, the government tried to end vending as a whole, but was unsuccessful. In fact, this happened many times with the same outcome.
The city, in the early going, or from the very beginning, has had an uneasy relationship with street vendors. I think there's always been a sense that they contribute to some kind of disorder when the city fathers wanted to keep things as kind of clean and organized as possible.
As Los Angeles expanded geographically and economically, so did vending. By the 1930s, vendors moved from mainly selling tamales and produce to selling tacos as well. Much like food trucks today, they were all the rage. Due to the rise of the automobile in the 1940s, vendors started to buy trailers that could attach to their cars, adding another layer of mobility to their lives and businesses. In the 1950s, however, the insane explosions of fast food impacted the street vending world due to the restaurants' low prices and appealing eats. But of course, street vending continued and eventually became centered on Latino neighborhoods. More specifically in MacArthur Park, which is in downtown LA. Street vending became very popular there, and in the 1980s, MacArthur Park is still a hub for vendors.
In this particular area, in MacArthur Park, I'd say street vending really exploded in the 1980s as this neighborhood was transformed by immigration. It was the destination, really the port of entry for Central American refugees escaping war in El Salvador and Guatemala. And this neighborhood became predominantly immigrant, predominantly undocumented in the 1980s. And to this day continues to be probably the most visible manifestation of street vending anywhere in Los Angeles. There's a couple reasons for it, right? You have people that are coming from a cultural or agrarian tradition where selling things in an open marketplace was the way that business was done in their home countries, and so it was very normal, natural way of supporting your family and bringing your goods to market.
Flash forward to September 2018, Senate Bill 946, or the Safe Sidewalk Vending Act, was passed. This decriminalized vending in Los Angeles. It states that, quote, sidewalk vendors may not be prohibited, although local authorities will be able to establish regulations on sidewalk vendors to protect valid health, safety, and welfare concerns.
And what ended up happening with SB 946 is that Senator Ricardo Lara actually, stepped in and had a lot of questions and met with vendors and was really curious about what the process had been like. He wanted to understand what the city was doing, where was the standstill in some of that work. And so with his leadership, informed by the campaign, some of the street vendors, he took it to Sacramento and decided to decriminalize street vending at a statewide level.
Second largest city in the nation to legalize sidewalk vending.
This has had some positive effects for vendors, who are now able to vend without fear of the police finding them or confiscating their merchandise and carts. Now, vendors can look to law enforcement to keep them safe from extortion and other aggressors.
Aquí cuando está con las reglas en vez de vender sin permiso.
Pues es muy cómodo porque antes teníamos tickets de infracciones y teníamos que ir a veces a corte y cosas así, porque no había permiso, no estaba legalizado. Entonces había muchos lugares.
While vending has been decriminalized, the main challenge at the moment is establishing a street vendor permitting system. Creating a permitting system that is accessible to all vendors is not easy. How are the new rules and regulations made available to vendors? What is a reasonable amount for vendors to spend on a permit? And if buying a food cart that is in compliance with new regulations costs upwards of $15,000, how do vendors and the city prepare for this type of expense and investment? In order for street vendors to become part of the formal economy, street vendors, city officials, and investors all need to come together to make this happen. While the notion that vendors prefer to be unregulated may be widespread, a recent street vendor summit proves otherwise. On March 22, 2019, Learn Network held a street vending summit.
What we heard at our street vendor summit in March is that folks are eager to learn more. They're eager to understand what their rights are. They're eager to have an opportunity to formalize and really transition into the formal economy. And that's actually a very expensive process, right? Because we're talking about permits, we're talking about new equipment. So it won't be cheap. But they're open and willing to do it because they're tired of running and they're tired of being harassed.
The Street Vendor Summit recommendations to city officials, investors, and policymakers include the following. 1. Close the income gap. Create more micro-loan programs so that vendors can afford all the necessary equipment to comply with city regulations. 2. Regular street vendor summits. Having regular summits will help vendors stay updated if there are any rule changes. 3. Build capacity of ally organizations. Organizations need support in order to positively impact the community. 4. Capacity assessment of public agencies. Officials focus on eliminating language barriers, developing tools for education, and training staff. 5. Standardizing policies across agencies. Agencies that govern a shared territory should ensure that their policies are not contradicting, and instead build off one another. Based on these recommendations, we urge you to talk to your local representative to advocate for street vendors' rights.
And so there's an opportunity to talk to your families, to talk to your neighbors about what street vending actually means. It's more than someone standing at a corner selling fruit.
Organizations you can donate to include Learn, ELAC, and the LA Food Policy Council. They meet with vendors regularly, have programs which help vendors, and they give out affordable, non-predatory loans to vendors. But just because officials are encouraged to work with vendors doesn't mean that they will. Multiple communities in the Los Angeles area are given freedom to manage vendors in their jurisdiction, and unfortunately, they often have unfairly strict regulations or police vendors to an extreme degree. However, the street vending world will progress with the backing of thousands of people in Los Angeles. Vending is one of the most loved pieces of culture that we have in LA, and to many, there's nothing better than running down to MacArthur Park and grabbing some food.